Well, the season is getting close to coming to an end, and while the Arizona Coyotes may not be close to any awards anytime soon, these two players should at least be considered for individual awards in the upcoming NHL awards. We're going to talk about these two players on today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast.
Your Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome everyone to the show. This is Locked On Coyotes. I'm Robyn Leonio, that's Carl Pavlok. We got a great show for you on today's episode. We are talking NHL awards, specifically focusing on the Arizona Coyotes, talking about two players that really deserve to at least be in consideration for individual awards, Carl. If anyone has been following the team, for sure we're going to talk about two specific players here. We're talking about Matias Macelli in contention for the Calder Trophy, and Clayton Keller for the Bill Masterton Trophy. Let's go at least get some first thoughts in it, and we're going to talk about Macelli first. But let's get some first thoughts on what you're thinking about this.
So, the Macelli for Calder is something that I think we both recognize should be like a bigger thing. I know I have done an episode, I think, where I talked about it. I've written an article on the new Five for Howling on Ghost about it. Or actually, no, that was on the old one. Either way, we have definitely been planning that. The Masterton Trophy is definitely a bit harder to predict because it is a different thing that we're not necessarily cued into.
There's a little more arbitrary aspects to it.
It is mostly related to you need a knowledge of an incident that happens, because the Masterton Trophy is given to a player who kind of overcomes something, and usually it's an injury. We know Clayton Keller was hurt. I'm not keeping track of what the rest of the league is happening, so it's harder for me to predict.
Exactly, but we'll get to that and kind of take a look at that in the case of Clayton Keller in a little bit. But let's start, Carl, with the case for Matias Macelli or Matias McCalder, as everyone's been calling him on Twitter, because oh my God, this kid, in November, I was like, maybe we should, it's early, but let's think about it. Let's think about it. When he was injured in December, Carl, I was like, there goes his chances.
Yeah.
But then he comes back from injury and continues to lead rookies among, in his points per game that he's.
He is top in points per game, averaging 0.75 per games played, which is impressive.
Mm-hmm.
He has 45 points in 60 games, which is second in amongst rookies. He has 35 assists, which leads all rookies in assists. Definitely a very good season by Matias Macelli, proving himself to be a playmaker. And, definitely a solid piece of the Lawson, Krause, Macelli, McBain line.
Yeah. And let's remember, he's doing this as a member of the Arizona Coyotes, a team that we all anticipated to be very, very bad.
Yes. It is definitely one of those things where, you look at the Coyotes overperforming this season, you could point to the fact that it is rookie players like Macelli, along with core players, like his line mate Lawson Krause, who are finding this success. I know we talked about, you know, Lawson Cross specifically. Like, we're like, Phil Kessel was a pretty big part. He played a lot with Kraus. Like, he wasn't scoring as many goals, but he was, could still put the puck on someone's stick. Is Kraus going to regress a bit? And the answer is no. And I honestly believe that Matias Macelli is a big reason why he didn't regress at all.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's been awesome is like that I think to like in based off my personal eye test, continues to get better every game.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to see out of a rookie.
Yeah, he definitely has some slumps, but like overall, everything is trending in the right direction for Macelli.
I want to go ahead and point something out, Carl, and this is absolutely amazing. And I'm going to talk about some trends on the case for in the case for Macelli segment, and I know we're going to get to like the likelihood and at the end of this show, but I'm looking at an Athletic article ranking the top 20 Calder Trophy candidates for the 2022-23 NHL season. Matias Maccelli isn't in any of the top 20, nor is he in any of the honorable mentions.
When was the article written?
This was written in September.
Okay. Which, I mean, in all fairness, like, I didn't think Macelli had a great season with the Coyotes last year. I was not expecting like this level of
I
play.
mean, you saw glimpses if you followed the Roadrunners well enough. The only problem was the Tucson Roadrunners last year were god awful.
Yeah, it's it's tough to spot. I do not blame anyone for not having Macelli on their Calder list before the start of the season. I do blame people for not having him on the list at any point after like November.
Absolutely. But here's where it gets better, Carl, in terms of trends. If anyone who follows the show or follows the show on social media specifically, I posted on the Locked On Coyotes Twitter that according to FanDuel at the time, this was a couple weeks ago, maybe even close to a month ago now, Carl, that Matias Maccelli's odds to win were plus 10,000. That means he was an absolute long shot, probably not even a finalist.
Yeah.
Like this was a month ago, but but just now is everyone is his name being um, finally being put up, and I really think that's because a lot of us, you, me, the guys over at PHNX, a lot of the other shows or outlets that try to cover the Coyotes, we've been pushing it. We really have, and other people are starting to take notice. Um,
I mean, once we get to the end of the season, like you really get like a full scope of everything. And let's say you weren't paying attention to the Coyotes 2 months ago. Now you're getting ready to prepare your Calder votes. You're in the media. You pull up the list. Is it the media who votes for the Calder? I don't. I can never.
I believe the media does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But like you pull up your list of like rookie players, and you're like, oh wow, Matias Maccelli is number 2, and he is number 1 in points per game. Like that is the totality of the season. Like really starts to impact, especially when you consider the fact that he was hurt.
Exactly.
Like if he didn't get hurt, he would be probably like well, let's be real. He has more assists than goals, and I think a lot of people find goals flashier. They stand out more, but he would be like a universal top 3 vote.
Oh, absolutely. If like he would without a doubt be a finalist. Like I think he still is, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But he's still without a doubt would be a like unquestionable finalist if he never got injured.
Yep.
But we will talk about more about him in a little bit. But we do want to get to Clayton Keller, however, though. and we will get to him in just a moment. But first, a quick word from our sponsors on the show.
When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's US data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job. And Indeed has so many good skills. I know me personally, I am always looking for something that just easily matches people up. That's why I love Indeed matching. And Indeed knows that when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockdown to start hiring today. Just go to Indeed.com/lockdown. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
So let's go ahead and move on then now, Carl. Talk about Clayton Keller and his case for the Masterton Trophy, um, which, if those that don't follow enough don't know what the Masterton Trophy is, here's the description pulled straight from the NHL.com website. The Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy is an annual award under the trusteeship of the Professional Hockey Writers Association and is given to the NHL player who best exemplifies the quality of perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. Um, Essentially, it goes towards a player who has persevered through something um, like an injury or like something else. In
Yeah.
the last, I'd say, very many, like a decent chunk of the last few winners were like went to go battle like mental health issues, as an example. So that's
Or
um,
cancer.
or cancer. Yes, that's another one. Um, Injuries is a very common one.
Or
I
just
think,
being Yaromir Yager and
or
like
Yarmer
still
Yager
playing.
just because he played after reaching what 46 or something like that, like, and he just kept going.
Yeah.
um, which are really interesting year for that one to happen. But and that's why I mentioned earlier that it's kind of a little more. There's a little more arbitrariness to it. Like the decision of what exactly is the decision regarding perseverance. It's really up to the writers because the writers decide, what it really means. Um,
And it's up to like what happened that year. Like
exactly?
Devin Dubnyk won for like completely revitalizing his career, partially with the Coyotes. Um, but that was also a year where I don't think anyone like overcame a cancer diagnosis. So there are definitely like years where it's very easy to call who's going to win the Masterton. I think like Oscar Lindblom, uh, like everyone was like, yeah, he's a lock for it. But this year, I think it's a little bit more open unless there's a significant player issue that I'm unaware of. Do you have anyone in mind as like a standout this year?
Not really. I think um, Clayton Keller. Obviously, we're going to talk about him in a little bit, but I think outside of Clayton Keller, the only one I can think of that probably comes to my mind, and it is a pretty big one. So like it does deem pretty important here. Um, Chris Letang, who had a stroke
Sure.
mid earlier in the season. For those who know, like, and he just came back and he's been, he's been, empowering hard. He's, I think that's one, and that's a pretty big one right there.
Maybe Tays in Chicago because I know he has come back. Is he starts playing? I know he was skating.
I don't know. I don't think I have that full details on that one. But let's go ahead and get straight to
Oh yeah,
the case for Keller, though.
he has played 47
Yeah,
games, but
let's get to the case of Keller because I think that's the one that's the most important. That's the one that we want to talk about before we get to, the odds that these two players win an award. If you take a look, Carl, at Clayton Keller's last year, it is absolutely phenomenal what he has done.
yep.
You're talking about a player who broke his femur last year, um, and missed much of the offseason. He wasn't able to train because he had to go to rehab. Missed much of
Yep.
training camp, all of training camp, all of the
No
preseason,
preseason.
and just
Yep.
came back in for the regular season to begin, and has had a career year and potentially very likely seems like he's going to be you know in route of taking up the a franchise record.
I mean, he has already set the Coyotes record for longest point
Mm-hmm.
streak. He very easily could be the Coyotes' top point scorer, which, you know, it wouldn't be a franchise because we're talking about the Jets. We have to
Of
include
course.
them in franchise history. But definitely the highest scoring player in my time watching the Coyotes. He passed Radim Vrbata. It's 35 goals from the 2011-2012
Right.
season, which never thought that would happen. Never thought Keller would be the person to do it either.
Yeah, because I mean, you would have hoped because I think that Keller had a lot of he had a lot of hope going in, but I feel like no one really expected him. Like it'd be we'd be talking about him at this point. I mean, we didn't know what the Coyotes team was going to look like, and we didn't
Yeah.
know that he was going to be the cornerstone of this team. Up until, of course, more recently, in which it's very, very, extremely become clear that he has, and that and to see that trajectory that he's you know built himself up in this last couple of years to get himself playing incredibly well. He played incredibly well last year, up until that injury,
Yep.
and then he goes out and has another career year after that injury. Like what?
Yeah. He already has 82 points in 78 games, which I mean, I think potentially he's not gonna pass Kachuk, but I don't think anyone expected the Coyotes to have a point per game player this season. And the fact that it is Keller, who I was at that game, horrific injury. Don't like to think about it, if I'm being honest. Like every time they're like, "Hey," because we were very recently like in that time with like a year ago this happened. I'm like, I don't necessarily need to see Keller go into the boards. You don't need to show me that. That's fine. I'm cool with it. But it is great to see like the fact that he is like emerged as this elite player on a team that no one expected anything of after a horrific
Yeah.
injury. I think it at least warrants
It
consideration.
warrants I think even more than just consideration, Carl, because the idea that its perseverance is one aspect of it, according to to the trophy, but dedication to hockey. Like you think about it, like a lot of players would probably think after breaking their femur or breaking their leg to be like, you know, let's take it easy, let's not worry about it. But Keller went to like the moment he was able to skate again, or went to skate again, and he
Yeah.
worked hard.
I think we actually talked
We were
about that.
concerned.
Like,
We were like, don't rush it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There was definitely like I think we were less concerned than some of the people that we were
Yes.
following, because we're like, look, there's medical personnel, there's trainers, they know what's happening. We are not doctors. We're not going to offer any kind of opinion on this, but it seems like they were doing the right thing, and they did. Like, Keller rehabbed exactly the way he needed to. I cannot imagine a player having a better season.
Absolutely. So definitely should be a heavy consideration for the Masterton Trophy. In a little bit, though, we are going to talk about both Macelli and Keller's odds on winning those respective trophies. But we're going to get to that in just a moment. But first, I do need to take a quick break so we can hear from our sponsors on the show. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. You know, there's going to be a lot of NBA talk here in Phoenix. Everyone loves to talk about the Suns or any of the California teams because it's just the way things are. But FanDuel's the place to do it if you're going to be, placing any bets. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout for the same game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockdown. That's FanDuel.com/lockdown to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So let's go now to odds, Carl, to that these two players win their respective trophies. And I'm going to start with Maccelli because I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I mentioned on the show just earlier that a couple weeks ago, Maccelli's odds were at plus 10,000. I just checked again before we started recording this episode, Carl. It is now improved to plus 1,000. So he's still not a favorite, but he's definitely now in like the top, I believe 5, maybe 6.
I think I saw him at number 5 on like a tweet recently. I don't know if it was FanDuel, but one of the odds makers had him at 5th overall, which is still just astonishing.
It is astonishing. And I think the more and more like we try to push it, and like other people, like and the more he continues to play well, and he continues to have, if he has a great last, what is it now? 4 games left.
Yep.
If he has a great last 4 games, I don't see how he cannot at least be a finalist in like the last 3.
Honestly, yes. I think he should be a finalist. I do believe that there are people who have already just given it to Mabinaires. Like, let's be real.
Yes, because he's been great. There's no denying how good Matty Beniers has been. He has been great. He has proven to be an incredible asset to Seattle, but like, I don't know. It's
Well, I mean, let's say it. Macelli has more points per games played. Like, it's close. He has more. Like we said, if he played a full season, he would easily have more points overall. But like 10 or however many games he missed,
the injury does take away Macelli's chances at winning it. Unfortunately, it's still like, I hate that injuries do that, but you still look at what he did despite the injury. Honestly, I think he gets the second most votes.
He should at least be top 3 in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Like, throw him in there, throw Matty in there, put a goalie in there. Why not? Or a rookie defenseman. But Macelli deserves some attention. He has earned it. If he does not, it really says something about the voting that a player could have such a phenomenal rookie season and not get any kind of recognition for it.
Absolutely. So it's hard to say if he's going to win because again, like you said, you feel like a lot of writers have already decided who the winner is. But you know what? That's fine. We know who Macelli is, and like we know they have him to be a finalist, and I think that's at least a guarantee. Like I wouldn't say guarantee, but at least you know it seems likely that he will.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
It's one of those things where we are talking about like an award that is notoriously difficult to predict.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm trying to remember like how often we see like a universally recognized Calder. Like what Connor McDavid didn't even win the Calder like his year, right?
I'm trying to remember. No, because that year was a tough one
Yeah.
because that draft class was just so good.
Yeah. So it is definitely one of those things where I'm not going to call it for Macelli because I don't think he's going to get it, but I think he should be recognized as a finalist.
100%. Now let's move on to the Masterton Trophy. I don't see how Keller isn't a finalist. I feel like it really is down to two. And the two that I mentioned, Clayton Keller and Chris Letang. A kid who broke his leg and then has a career year, or someone who has a stroke mid-season and continues to play, coming back from that, and plays pretty damn well because it's Chris Letang.
Yeah. That is definitely a tougher one for me to predict because unfortunately I do not keep up with the injury news as much. Like I don't necessarily follow like who comes back from like sustained injuries. When I do game previews, I will look up who is currently injured, and that is kind of the extent of it. But I do think that Clayton Keller is getting recognition in a way that Coyotes players have not gotten in over a decade. And the fact that that is coming after a serious injury and missing all of preseason, it is pretty astonishing. I saw that he was the first Coyotes player of the month since Mike Smith, which is just goes to show you how long ago that was because Mike Smith hasn't been on the Coyotes in a very long time.
Yeah, that is very true. One more thing I will mention about Letang being a finalist as well is one thing I totally forgot. I actually looked this up just now. Is he actually Chris Letang actually lost his father earlier this year as well. Um,
So yeah,
like
that's
so you have two, I think, without a doubt, finalists: Chris
yeah.
Letang and Clayton Keller. Like I feel like you can't choosing between those two is definitely hard depending on like how you want to look at it. But I believe those two are finalists without a doubt.
I mean, barring like another player who had horrific life circumstances that I'm unaware of, I would say that those are two really good picks. We are running out of time. I do wonder, since we limited this to players, just real quick, what do you think about Jack Adams?
Jack Adams. It's a tough one.
The Coyotes definitely have overperformed.
They have overperformed. I feel like Torani should get a look. I don't think he will be a finalist.
Yeah, it is tough to have a finalist for the Jack Adams when you're like one of the worst teams in the NHL. But we also talked about the fact that he got career seasons out of at least
100%. I feel like in about 2 years from now, if he continues to do the thing he's doing, along with the pieces that Bill Armstrong have brought in, I have no doubt that Bill Armstrong can be considered for GM of the year, and Torney can be considered for Jack Adams. But that's years from now, and we can't predict that. But I think I should at least be, maybe something that could happen. But that's probably for me another thought training process later on.
Yeah. Definitely. Just a little thought experiment to go out on.
100%. Well, that's going to be it for today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, to like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We are available everywhere you get your podcast, including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Locked On Coyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leano. That's Robyn with a Y _LEANO. Carl Pavlak is at 5 for Howling. 5 spelt out, the number 4, and Howling. If us ask a question you might have, we might answer right back or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.